And for people who might sense that they are experiencing age bias at either end of their careers, um, what guidance might you have to offer in these scenarios?
Mm. So this is a complex one. I'm not going to pretend to have an easy answer to that very complicated set of dynamics. I will say that often in my work with executives, I find that there's at that point, you often have people who are more seasoned, we'll say, in their careers, who might have a lot of judgment about the mindset and orientations of people who are coming in, who are the early stages of their career. And my advice to those executives is often to say that there are many things about the way that the younger generations are approaching work that are so much healthier than the way our generation may have approached it. And so encouraging this idea of how are we listening to learn and how are we thinking about building bridges? And I think my advice to people who find themselves at either end of that is it may seem the most counterintuitive thing, but how are you finding people who are at the far other end of the spectrum? So if we look at cultures who lived close to the land and who lived in really strong, healthy communities, things that we lost slowly over the decades since we got rid of quintessence, that there was a bridge that was formed between people who were in the later stages of work or life with those who were in the younger stages. And that the learning that could happen both ways strengthened the whole ecosystem, the web of life in that community. And so I find that taking a learning approach to each other and making the belief that there's things that we can help at each end. And I'll give a very simple example. Someone who's earlier in their career can often find immense benefit in the network and relationships and the ability to navigate diverse settings that someone who's had a lot of experience has had. And on the flip side, someone who is in many ways perhaps less bound by identity, more open to creative experiences, to solutions. These are things I see in the younger generations, can help those of us who have maybe become fixed in the ways that we orient to work, break out of the mold and start to think of things in new ways. So I think starting to find, back to our herd, how is our herd having representations at either ends of those generations can help us. The other thing that those relationships can do is help us anticipate the biases we might run into and have a sounding board for how to navigate them for a purpose or intention we have.
Mm-hmm. I am further along in my career as my gray beard denotes. And for people who find themselves at my stage of career, one book that I will mention is Arthur Brooks's book From Strength to Strength. I think he has done a good job of articulating how we evolve through our career and jumping, I think, from the fluid curve to the crystalline curve, or vice versa. But but being kind of like doing and performing earlier in our career to being and partnering and mentoring and being the sage at the the tail end of our careers is something that really resonated with me. But I feel like I've been having my blinkers on, going back to the horses, but I never um, I'm glad that you brought up the other end of the career journey, and it does make me think that when I make my way back into the workforce, to actually pay attention to the younger generation, those that are starting out in their careers, and what can I learn from them, that will enhance my day to day. So yeah, I've really had my blinkers on because of where I am in my career on the age bias towards the back end. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad that you think about it in terms of both ends.